For USCFootball.com, I'm Jack Smith, joined alongside Chris Treviño for instant analysis from USC's Tuesday morning practice of the Pac-12 Championship game week, a rematch with Utah on Friday in Las Vegas. This is the lone media available practice this week, so we were here early on Tuesday morning. It's cold, you've got the USA shirt on, but a very big week for the Trojans. The only practice we'll be at this week, so this is a very big instant analysis. Chris, what are your overall general thoughts?
Yes, I am a little bit chilly. I took off my hoodie just to represent USA. Jack has no idea why. He's not picking up on these things, what's going on nationally in sports. But anyway, it was a very early morning practice. You know, the energy was kind of back on campus with students back. I felt a little bit of that energy with the team coming out. Didn't feel as high tension as that UCLA week. Felt a little bit looser, but still, you know, a little bit of that. It's a win and get in for them. You know, they win, they're probably going to the playoffs. So you felt a little bit of that. It was somewhere in between the Notre Dame week, you know, after that emotional release of a UCLA week and the UCLA week, which was high tension, a lot of focus. Still very focused, but I like the energy that I saw in the limited time we got. Remember, this is a Tuesday practice, but it's technically a Wednesday practice, so we only got to see 7 minutes of their warm-ups, and that's it. But I did like what I saw and felt from the team coming out.
Yeah, and it obviously is a big week for USC because it is a rematch with Utah, the lone loss on the USC schedule this year by just 1 point, Chris. So it is a big game, but Lincoln Riley shut down any talk of a revenge game very quickly, saying it is not a revenge game. There were kind of talks about that revenge tour this season, but Tuli Tuipulotu also mentioned that Lincoln told the team to kind of calm down about the revenge aspects. They're just trying to look at it as another game of football. What did you take from what he said earlier today?
Not surprised. I mean, this staff and Lincoln Riley have been about toning down any of that extra emotion that you have, you know, with a rivalry game, you know, with the trash talking from UCLA, didn't take the bait. Notre Dame, you know, not as much trash talking, but still a big rivalry game. Same thing. Didn't say anything outlandish, didn't say anything about, oh, we're going to stomp those Shamrocks or anything nothing like that. It was all very even-keeled, keeping everything level. You know, this is just another game. Yes, the circumstances are different being a rivalry game, and in this case, it is a revenge game, and that mainly goes for the fans. At least that's what USC is saying on the outside. Perhaps in the locker rooms, it's more like they know it is a revenge game. And you can't think about it when you talk about these two teams. You can't not think about it as a player who was on that field 6 weeks ago in Salt Lake City. You know what that felt like. You know what that loss felt like in that locker room. So, you know, they say that, but I know there is, you know, a little bit of that deep in their heart, in their minds, that it is a revenge game. But Lincoln was like, this is a whole new game for us. You know, this game on Friday is not about that game we played on the road 6 weeks ago. It's about this new game. It's a new thing. It's a new challenge. It's something different. So that's how they're kind of approaching it. I'm not really surprised by that because, as I mentioned, the staff is very good about, you know, keeping everything level. Don't make anything higher or lower than it has to be.
Yeah, and Lincoln has mentioned that there are some advantages and disadvantages when playing a team for a second time in a given season. He has a very good track record when that is the case. It happened 2 times to him at Oklahoma. What did you take from what Caleb and Lincoln and Tuli Tuipulotu specifically said about the advantages and disadvantages about playing a team for a second time?
Right. I mean, the big advantage off the bat is that you have an idea of how they're going to play you. You know, if you're Caleb Williams, you know how they're going to try to defend you, what coverages are going to try to throw at you. So you have a rough idea of what you're going to see. Obviously, if you're a defensive coordinator on the other side, you're going to be like, we have to do a little bit different. But for the most part, you have a good sketch of what you expect to see going to that game. And in terms of disadvantages, you know, the winning team, Utah in this case, they do have a little bit more confidence going into this game because, hey, they beat you once and they know they can do it again. Sure, the circumstances were different. You know, you had a really emotional home game, sellout crowd. You know, you're honoring some of your fallen teammates. So a lot of emotion for Utah, but they still have that edge of confidence. They have the 1-0 victory against that 1-0 record against USC this season. So that gives them an air of confidence. But in terms of a disadvantage too, USC's hungry. You know, you're coming into this matchup wanting that payback, wanting that revenge. So that gives USC a little bit of an edge. So there's plenty of disadvantages and advantages going both ways for these teams.
Yeah, and Lincoln mentioned that just because Utah won the first time, just because the game went the way it did the first time, doesn't mean that's how it's going to repeat. He says that actually, when there are rematch games, they tend to play themselves out much differently than they did the first time. And he also mentioned that both of these teams, USC and Utah, whether it be injuries or players or just overall scheme changes or wins or losses, they've evolved since those first games. So he's saying, you know, maybe don't expect it to be the exact same game USC and Utah play the second time because both teams have changed dramatically. You have some injuries on both sides. You've had just teams teams change like USC did after the loss, with all the emotions that came off of that and the revenge that they've tried to enact throughout the second half of the season. What did you overall take from what Lincoln said in that area?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to what he said. It's going to be a new game. It's a new challenge. It's a new thing to get over. You know, you can go back and watch the tape from that first matchup, but don't keep that in your mind all the time, you know, because you should expect to see different players step up, different players make plays. You know, this is going to be a different Cameron Rising. You know, for the most part, he seems a little bit limited, so maybe they don't see him run as much. Maybe it's more of a passing attack for him. You know, Dalton Kincaid has stepped up significantly since that USC game. They have some guys step up in the offense. They have different running backs that are primary guys. So USC has to be ready for a whole list of different things. So if you're caught up thinking about what you saw the first time around, you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage. So wipe that clean and know that when you walk in there, it's going to be a very different game. And I think that's the point he's making.
Now, speaking of what happened the first time around, the big letdown for USC was the defense. We got to speak with Alex Grinch, the USC's defensive coordinator, today about the defensive struggles in the first game, about what he's seen from USC down the stretch. What did you take first from what defensive coordinator Alex Grinch said today?
Well, sort of based on, you know, what the Notre Dame game, you know, he was very proud of the effort that they gave, and he should be. That was probably one of their best games that they played all season. 2 takeaways, shutting down that run game, and, you know, holding them to 27 points on the game. So hats off to them, and he was very complimentary of them. But he's also, you know, it wasn't perfect, and that is Alex Grinch in a nutshell. You know, he has these aspirations for how good this defense could be, but he's always real with what he says, and that, you know, we have to get better, we have to get better, we have to get better. That's been his message all season, and, you know, we see it week to week. Sometimes they'll take a step back, sometimes they'll take multiple steps forward. I feel like they've taken multiple steps forward over these last 2 weeks in these kind of gauntlet games, and I kind of feel that just steps to what USC's defense has done all season, and they've kind of played up in these big moments in these big games. Sure, that did not play out to be that was not the case, in Salt Lake City. You know, they let them down at the end, but I still hit on that they were playing really well to start that game, for a couple flags, kind of get them out of whack, and then was off to a shootout for that game. But, you know, USC's defense does have some payback on their mind based off what that offense did to them. And I think he knows that this defense still has plenty of improvement to make going into this game, and then going beyond whatever we may get. You know, that's a playoff game or a Rose Bowl or a Cotton Bowl, whatever. Down the stretch, this defense still needs to get better.
Overall, Chris, the biggest challenge that the USC pass defense has faced this season is Dalton Kincaid, and of course that was a big topic of conversation at practice today with Coach Alex Grinch. What were your overall thoughts about what he said about Utah's monster tight end?
I'm sure there are USC fans still waking up with nightmares and cold sweats about Dalton Kincaid and what he did to the Trojans. But he kind of mentioned nothing, you know, something super specific about, you know, we have to play this kind of coverage or anything like that. It's basically something he's hit on all season, and that's do your job. Jack, you do your job when you do this instant analysis. You go back and forth, you get the camera set up. Do your job. If you didn't do your job, we wouldn't have instant analysis. So if they don't do their job, Dalton Kincaid is going to run wild on them again. And that's the message that he's been hitting on. Last time there was 11 guys out there, but only 10 of them were doing their job. You know, with somebody not doing their job. And Shane Lee kind of said the same thing when he was asked about Dalton Kincaid when he looked back, and it was just guys not doing their job. So that's the emphasis this week. Go out there, do your job, make your plays. You're not going to make every play, but if you have that effort, make those competitive plays, you're going to have a lot of good wins out there on the field for the defense. So that's been the harping of them. Get him to the ground, tackle him. Don't let him get those yards after carry, because that was the big thing that was killing them in that first matchup.
Yeah, and I think that was the biggest thing is the tackling against Utah. That was the biggest problem. But USC has tackled a little bit better since then. The run defense has improved. The pass defense taken some slight steps back against Cal and Notre Dame and UCLA at points. But you feel like the defense has improved. They'll get a shot at Dalton Kincaid. They just, I don't want to say shut down Michael Mayer, but he didn't go for 234 yards, just about 90 yards and a couple touchdowns. But they get another shot at Dalton Kincaid. You would assume that he's going to be Utah's primary focus. But I'm not going to make you make a prediction for this game because it is only Tuesday. The game's on Friday, so we got a little bit of time. But overall, how are you feeling about this game, and what would you tell USC fans who are maybe nervous, confident? What are your overall thoughts?
If you're a USC fan, I think you should have sort of this cautious confidence, cautious optimism about this team. This is a different Utah team. They are banged up across the board. You know, Cam Rising is not 100%. I mean, no one's 100% at this point of the season, but, you know, he's been battling through an injury the last several weeks since that USC win. You know, they've lost several key players this season and injuries. You know, they've got guys that are, you know, not 100%, as I mentioned. So they're banged up. USC's less banged up, as I would put it, and USC's playing with a lot of confidence, especially on offense. You know, you have a guy who's the favorite for the Heisman Trophy, excuse me. I'm already saying Heisman winner in my head, for Caleb Williams. So the defense has a lot of confidence right now after these two big gauntlet wins during the stretch, and USC is playing really well during the toughest part of the season. So I think they're going to be up for this game. Utah's going to be up for this game. And the one thing I would be cautious about is that the Utes play really well as the underdog, and they're going to be the underdog in this game. They're the number 2 seed. They have the most losses, even though they beat USC earlier. Everyone's picking USC. And Kyle Whittingham, you know, say what you will, but he gets Utah to play really well as an underdog. So that's the only thing that would really be holding me up. But in a neutral field, you know, you have to feel pretty good about USC's chances to go and handle business and get that quote-unquote payback, if you will, even though it's not officially part of the revenge tour, as Lincoln Riley would like to have you believe.
Yeah, as I said for the UCLA game, I think this is the kind of game that USC brought Lincoln Riley in for. He's got experience taking teams that are right on the edge of the playoff and just pushing them over the edge, getting them into the college football playoff and impressing the selection committee. He's got experience in conference title games. He's got experience in games where he's previously played that team and lost to that team. He's got a very good track record of that at Oklahoma. So I feel like this is the kind of game that Lincoln Riley knows how to play. Alex Grinch, though many Trojan fans aren't happy with the way the defense has played this season, has experience in these kind of games. I think that they're going to get the Trojans ready. I think I would agree that I would be cautiously confident if I was a Trojans fan that USC could go out and win. It might be a neutral field. Utah still might bring out more fans than USC, but it's not going to be the exact same thing as that first game where a lot of things went right for Utah and a lot of things went wrong for USC. I mean, it took a near perfect quarterback and tight end performance to beat USC by 1 point on the road. So I think USC will get a chance at revenge. They're not going to call it that, but it will be revenge against Utah. And I think I would agree with you. I would feel cautiously confident. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap it up and head on to Vegas on Friday?
Nope, I got nothing. I want to go watch the USA game, excuse me. You don't know what that is, so yeah, that's all I got to say.
Can we get a USA chant?
USA, USA, and then fade this out, USA, USA. Oh, you got to do your ending call, though.
Well, I'll just, we'll fade it out. I'll give you a second chance. But yes, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching Instant Analysis. I hope you guys are ready for Friday, Pac-12 title game against Utah. For Chris Treviño, I'm Jack Smith. Check out uscfootball.com for more. USA, USA.